Hello, I'm Tanya Stevenson and welcome back to Racing Weekly. It is a podcast and YouTube show brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. I'm standing in for Rishi. What a privilege that is. And look who I'm joined by. A big warm welcome to Sam Turner and Ken Pitterson. We're going to look back on the weekend's events before we look forward to those highlights of the wonderful 4 days of the Ebor Festival. So let's look back, shall we? Starting off, we'll head to Newbury first of all, where we enjoyed the Group 2 Hungerford Stakes. It was a race set up beautifully. It had chinned it at the top of the market, but it lost a little bit of its zest, shall we say, when last year's winner, Jumbie, came out of the race. Ken, I'm going to come to you first because I believe you were at Newbury for both Friday and Saturday, and going into the Hungerford Stakes, as it were, what were you kind of expecting from Chindit and the way he looked in the paddock?
Well, Chindit always promises to deliver, but for me, he's a bit of an underachiever. Even though he runs well in Group 1s, he runs well in Group 2s and wins them. I just thought 7 furlongs wasn't top of my radar to perform. The horse I fancied finished even behind him, so I wasn't a good judge of that race. But yeah, he runs his race, but I think it was a little bit of a shock that Richard Hannon won it with
Witch Hunter.
Witch Hunter.
Yeah,
I think that was a little bit of a shock, but I think the key to Witch Hunter is a strong pace, because he had that at Royal Ascot, and James Spencer came through to win that Royal Ascot, and again on Saturday with Pogo and Mobusher making the pace a strong one, it suited Witch Hunter. And then once Sean Levy switched to the rails, he really picked up well and won it in fair style, I thought.
Yeah, Sam, when you watched the morning markets, there was lots of support for the outsiders. Rudder Bayo, who ran a good race for the majority of the way. You also saw a little bit of money for New Endeavour. But even Sean Levy, when he came back in, he sort of was surprised that he sort of he ran on really strongly past Chindit.
Yeah, it was a strange race in a lot of respects, wasn't it? Because the pace setters arguably went too hard, and they all finished out with the washing, and that set it up, as Ken rightly alluded to, for the closers, of which the winner was probably the predominant one. And he's backing up some really solid performances, and he's improving race on race. Started off all-weather finals day, and didn't manage to win there, but has left those races behind. I just got the feeling it was a pretty substandard renewal, not wishing to damn the winner or even the second, who I thought ran really well, very creditably. But there's no Sacred, no Jumbie, just lacked a little bit of strength in depth. And you've got a lot of sort of 7 furlong group races in and around the same period of time on the calendar, and I think this race at Newbury on Saturday really suffered for that.
And another race on Saturday at Newbury, which certainly gave us a little bit of intrigue, is how we were to deal with Arrest. Coming into the Geoffrey Freer, had won the Chester Bars, but then started favourite for the Derby. Had run below par at Epsom, and Ascot wasn't really in the checkbox either. I don't know what to make of the Geoffrey Freer, because I think Frankie Sam was left to do what he wanted. I was as impressed by Ching Shi. I thought she had a scratchy action, but she sort of reduced the deficit towards the line.
Yeah, I think Ken will probably help us a lot with this race, regarding what Arrest looked like. But for me, he just looks like quite a dour galloper who wants soft ground to operate properly. He's got quite a pronounced knee action. I thought he might stride away and put a bit more space between himself and his toiling rivals in the straight. And he just didn't really gallop clear of them in the manner that I thought. I thought Frankie's comments, although I got them sort of second hand from the racing media on Saturday, that we'll, let's just see what Gregory does first. It didn't scream, oh yeah, this is my Ledger ride. I loved every way he went through the race. I thought it was a typical Dettori ride, really. Stayed out wide, looking for a bit of better ground. Was finally joined, I think, by Neil Callan on Jack Darcy. And I'm surprised one or two others perhaps didn't go with Frankie there and just sit in behind him. But anyway, it was a small field and he dominated them and stretched clear in the manner that, you know, one-time Derby favourite was fully entitled to do. I don't think he achieved a great deal other than it was a nice confidence booster and a good stepping stone into Doncaster.
Talking of Doncaster with Bet365, he is 7-1 for the St Ledger. Going into the race, Ken, what were you looking for from Arrest?
Yeah, I mean, the key to Arrest is the ground. I mean, when he's encountered soft ground, he looks good, fairly good. I mean, Saturday's race wasn't very strong, as Sam has said. Again, Frank is allowed to dictate his own pace. He was able to go to the front. He wasn't challenged. He was able to quicken up. But when you look at it, he's not, to believe it or not, he's even entered in the long distance cup at Ascot in October. So the Gosden team obviously see him as more of a stayer than a mile and a half or a mile and a quarter horse. So the fact they've entered it for him just says that Greg is probably their number one choice for the Ledger. I think he'll probably stay in training next year and turn into a couple horse personally. But yeah, the Ledger will be his next target as long as he gets really soft ground.
Yeah, we'll put Newbury aside for a minute. We'll come back to Newbury and ask about what was going on the Friday. We had a nice performance on the Friday. Let's move across and concentrate on Ripon. Brings a smile to our face because headlining on the front page of the Racing Post was dear old Summergand as we went into that great St Wilfrid. Many people were keeping their eyes on the preceding race, which was won by Roundhay Park, to see if there was any guidance from the draw. We know Summergand does what he does. Draw really doesn't affect Summergand. And there was plenty in the race. There was movers here, there and everywhere. Mushir Cody being one of the movers as well. But it went to a 3-year-old filly. The last one to do this was Pipalong in 1999. It went to the wonderful Sophia Starlight, Sam, who could not have been, well, she's just been brilliant throughout the season, and you could argue she deserved a big prize like this.
Yeah, I think she's even entered in the Knavesmire this week over 7 furlongs as well. So they may well strike while the iron's hot. It was a really tremendous performance, a good riding performance as well from Sam James, who knew where he wanted to be over on that far rail. And, you know, he was dictated to in some respects by his draw, but he made a decision early, got out quickly. I think that's her 5th win of the season. She started off a marker 69 back in Wolverhampton in May, I think, and she's done nothing but thrive since. Real credit to Grant Turing Connections and a really sparkling performance. Unlucky for Summergand, and he's just teed himself up beautifully for probably another Air Gold Cup bid, I would imagine. I think he's been placed a couple of times in the St Wilfrid, and you know, he's just an unbelievable horse in those big sprints with big fields. But nice performance from the winner. First time she's beaten sort of a big field like that as well. I know they split into 2 groups, and in essence it was probably 2 races, but you know, she's still thriving, and she might be worth trying again on the Knavesmire over 7 because she ran really well behind Saxon King at Chester early season, finishing 3rd behind him. That was a pretty solid effort, and she might be worth a little try on the Knavesmire, as I say, over 7 this week. Yeah,
she also, I saw closer to post time, her price contracted. Ken, this was a good performance by her. We can't take anything away from Summergand. He ran brilliantly, a strong finish, and I suppose he's been unlucky twice. He's won the race twice on the wrong side, and now he's finished 2nd. So it's not been his lucky race. But do you see him heading off to Ayr?
I do. I think again, he'll get a strong pace which he needs. I think conditions should suit him. But I also think the 3rd, Wob. I thought he ran a really good race on the stand side. Joe Fanning was out in front. He tried to make his ground to try and catch the ones on the far side, and I thought he did well. And he could be one that could be interesting for the Air Gold Cup, given the right conditions and the way the race are normally run. So I thought those 2 would be interesting going forward for me.
Excellent. Now let's go to yesterday, where we had I'll come to you first, Ken, because this is a superb race. Talk about depth. We had the Norfolk 1st and 3rd in Valiant Force and Elite Status. We had the Coventry winner in River Tiber. We had the July Stakes winner in Jasur. We also had the Richmond Stakes winner in Van Dijk. And we're talking the Prix Mornay. And I mean, this must have been for all of it. Well, it certainly was for me. Ken, this is a race to say this is what you want. You want all these big group winners coming together, and they did. And the race didn't disappoint.
Oh no, I mean, lucky enough, I saw Van Dijk when he breathed,
Right.
and as soon as he appeared in front of me, you thought this looks a really good horse. He breathes really well. He's winning on ground he shouldn't like, because when I watched him breathe, he was definitely better ground than he's raced on so far, and he's got a real fluent action. So I was slightly concerned about going into Sunday's race on heavy ground, but he showed his class there. I mean, he beat a good field there. I mean, River Tiber, okay, he had a few issues going into the race, but he ran a really good race to finish third. You had some really strong field in there, and I was impressed by the way he did it. I think he's the trainer to talk about going for races like the Middle Park, but I think you'll see I'm sure you will see a better horse when he encounters fast ground. I think the way he travels, the way he can quicken up on bad surfaces, good ground, you'll see a really decent horse.
Yeah, because he just was like a terrier alongside Ramatuelle. He was just, the pair of them pulled away, as it were, and they gave the race the kudos it deserved, didn't they?
Oh, definitely. I mean, it was a Group 1 in name, and it had probably the best 2-year-old field we've had this season. And I think you look at them, even the field will win decent races going forward. But I think the winners could be something pretty. Well, I think he could be very good.
Bet365 are 12-1 for next year's 2,000 guineas. Looking at the depth of the race, Sam, what did you take out of the Prix Mornay?
Well, yeah, as Ken sort of alluded to, really, and has described, I think it was the strongest field. It brought together a number of good strands of form. I think it showed the winner's versatility as well. The fact he can go, Nottingham to Goodwood, out to France to win a good quality contest like that. Not that long after winning so impressively at Goodwood and coping with the undulations there. I too think he'd be better on just a nice surface, racing surface. He's got pace to burn. I hope he doesn't go the way of Sakir, and he perhaps stretches out to 7. But if that's his limit, that's his limit. And treat him as he is, really. I just think he's a good, high quality horse. I think the second was a tremendous performance from her. They pulled readily clear of a Coventry winner who came into the race unbeaten. I know he had a pulled muscle allegedly a couple of weeks before, which wouldn't have been an ideal preparation, obviously, and they were very happy with him. River Tiber with the performance he posted on Sunday, but he must have been pretty near 100% for them to allow him to run. I can't imagine that they would have allowed him to run 90%. So I think it's very strong form. Unfortunately, there aren't many sort of straight track races from Sunday that we can line the time up with, but it looked pretty rapid. You'd imagine the way that the two of them have pulled clear of River Tiber, and with a solid horse in Sacred Angel in 4th and Valiant Force in 5th. It just stacks up well, doesn't it? The right horses were fighting out the finish, really.
Let's peel back. Let's go back a day or so, and I think I'll go back to Ken for this. Sometimes where there's so much going on, some really good performances go under the radar. And let's start off again back at Newbury on Friday with the St Hughes's Stakes. Now, watching this, you saw Majestic Beauty and Tears of the Clown go off and have a battle. And they didn't realise what came and overtook them near the line, Ken, did they? I mean, I thought Mia Harris, that acceleration was pretty impressive.
It was. I mean, again, going back to the Van Dijk thing, she was the 3rd fastest time clocked on the day, Mia Harris, at the breeze up sales. So that shows how good that race, those sales were at the time. I mean, I got to admit, Tanya, she's a filly that she's had an injury, and I think that's been to her advantage, that she's had time just to mature and just grow. And you see, and I saw her when she won at Sandown first time up, and the races just pulled her together. At Newbury, she looked the part, but I gave her no chance with a furlong to go. I thought she had no chance of winning from where she was. And then all of a sudden, Oisin Murphy got a clear run, clicked into gear, and she was on top within a matter of strides. She is very rapid. I mean, she's a really good moving filly. She's got plenty of pace, and she's got a frame to fill. So there's something going forward with her. The talk after the race is that they may go to the Dick Pool and then go to the Cheveley Park. that's the way they're thinking at the moment. But yeah, she's a filly of some substance and some pace as well.
Another little gem in the stable of Owen Burrows there. Now let's go on to Aidan O'Brien and Sam and his conveyor belt of goodies. He had another one out this week. You're shaking your head. He had another one out this weekend. I think he'd going into the Futurity Stakes. He'd won it 8 of the last 10 years. He produces Henry Longfellow, who, unlike Diego Vasquez, Henry Longfellow isn't as flashy. He just kept grinding it out, didn't he?
He did. It was a professional performance rather than perhaps an explosive one. I think he learnt. It was another step on his education of learning. I thought he never looked in any danger at any stage, did he? And I thought it was a pretty polished and stylish performance without being, as I say, totally explosive and a wow performance. It wasn't quite like a City of Troy in the superlative, but yeah, again, I mean, he's just another horse just to add to a roster of very exciting colts and fillies now from Ballydor going forward for next year. I should imagine it strikes fear into the heart of one or two of the powerhouses this side of the Irish Sea, that there just seems to be, a collection of talent which is starting to assemble at Ballydor. And he's followed in the footsteps of some really nice horses in winning that race. Looking down the list, Glen Eagles, Churchill, Max Swinney, Anthony Van Dyke. There's some really talented horses on that roll call for that race who've used it as a good stepping stone, and he's the latest in a long line.
Yeah, so he's now 10-1 for the 2,000 guineas with Bet365. We saw Van Dijk, he's 12-1. So we're getting all these quotes and they're all coming together. And you say, as we say, he's got a conveyor belt of goodies, Aidan. He's got a horse filly called it Ilang Ilang. Now, going into the debutant stakes, we were perhaps looking elsewhere. Perhaps I think it was Pearls of Rubies, but Ilang Ilang supporters would have been cheered by Vespertillo's acceleration. I mean, it was acceleration, I felt, Ken, as they turned for home. It was an astounding bit of power going home. So if she's finished behind Ilang Ilang, how good is Aidan's horse?
Well, hers performance was good the other day, like a push button performance. But lucky enough, I was at the Curragh when Ilang Ilang made her debut, and she walked in a really good field of fillies, and you thought this could be something special. And she's just got a manner about her, because on that day, I think the City of Troy made his debut as well. So I had the beauty of seeing both of those, but she is something special. I mean, she's got a lovely presence about her, and she moves really well. But yeah, that was just boosted her form. So she's probably the best filly I've seen this season, without any doubt. She's got all the ingredients to make a top class filly.
Yeah, we can't wait. Now let's talk about some of the action also that went on at Newbury Saturday. Sam, we had Desperate Hero winning, we had Spangled Mac winning. Sadly, but a couple of both those races had non-runners, which affected the market. But you can't take anything away from the performances of the pair of them.
No, I thought Desperate Hero was very impressive, continuing a good season for Jack Shannon. Tom Markander's dependable as ever, of course. Spangled Mac did it well. But the one horse I think that really caught my eye, and I'm very intrigued to see what Ken thought of him in the paddock, was Dancing Gemini, who I thought he got a beautiful ride. He got a very efficient and energy-saving ride, but still thought it was a really stunning performance. I know it's just a maiden stakes, and it was probably, most people had turned their attention to whatever was happening after racing by the 4:05, but I thought it was a sparkling display, and I believe Roger Teal holds him in high esteem, Ken.
Yeah, he does. I mean, lucky enough, I saw him make his debut at Salisbury when Jim Crowley rode him, and he looked not a bad type, but didn't look ready. But he ran a really decent race. Saturday, he'd taken a step forward, and he travelled better. I felt obviously he'd learned from his first one, travelled well and quickened up nicely. I mean, I fancied the second of Andrew Baldwin's and Fire Demon. I thought he looked the part, travelled up really strongly at the pace, and I thought, this would be interesting. But this Dancing Gemini picked him up in a couple of strides. So I think the race doesn't look too bad. I mean, the third horse, Godolphin, looked okay. So that race has got a bit of strength and depth, but the winner could be fairly useful because Roger Teal thinks a lot of him.
Yeah, I just thought it was a bit green during the race. Sorry, T. I just thought it was a bit green when he sort of hit the wide open spaces and hit the front, just shifted left under the, a little bit of a persuader from his rider. And then, I thought once he hit the line, he hit it very strongly. So want to carry with you going forward, I think.
Yeah, I was sorry, I was keen to carry on, Ken. I was keen to go to the Curragh. I'm excited.
He's definitely given us, he's a small stable. He'll probably go under the radar given the performance. But yeah, I think there's definitely more to come from him.
Oh, there's one for the notebook. There is one for the notebook. Let's go back to the Curragh to start with. In the Lafayette, we won the Royal Whip Stakes. That was for Noel Meads, picked up. Unless set it up for Lafayette. Then we had Shaminda for Dermot Weld win on Sunday, and I should check the entries for the Ebor because I'm really keen to check after that race, the Shaminda race, because the horse in second, I think before the entries had come through for the Ebor, I think it was 16 Dawn Rising, but we'll see. What do you think of those two races at the Curragh?
Well, yeah, I think Lafayette was at her fourth course win at the Curragh. I mean, she's a regular there, runs nearly every meeting that there's an opportunity for her. I thought she did well to come off the pace. We've seen the Curragh racing, in recent years. It's often been dominated by those horses that have been ridden forward, and she was last turning in, showed a good turn of foot, trademark turn of foot to go and win her fourth race there. And I think it was interesting to hear Dermot Weld talk about Shaminda, later on, and really did give her quite a big up. She was thought it was a workmanlike display, but a very strong, powerful display. I thought she was well on top of the line. She beat a small but select field. I think the second horse had won at Royal Ascot, so the form looks pretty handy. And although there's only 4 runners, I thought she showed again what resolution she's got. I think he's got sort of 1 or 2 big plans for her. She might appear over Art Weekend, I think.
Can we add
Sorry, Sam. I think he said he's going for the English on St. Ledger.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. When I watched it this morning, he said that that's definitely on their radar to come over for the English St. Ledger. So she'll add definitely. Right.
That's good.
Yeah, I'll check that out. The price for that would be great news. Then again in France, we had a superb race again in France. Going back, we had Marquess de Seville and Via Sistina. Ken battle out a really, really strong renewal of the Prix Jean Romanet.
Yeah, that was a really good performance, because when you watch the race, the first and second all came from behind the pace, which I thought, because normally in France you've got to be there because they don't go a great pace. But I thought she showed a really good turn of foot to come from behind. And Via Sistina, we know how good she is. I mean, she had a strong pace. Jamie Spencer tried to smuggle her in, and then just you could see into the final throw, and he just had to ask her for a maximum effort. But she was done by a filly with a serious turn of foot, I feel. And apparently she's been aimed at the Sun Chariot. So Andre Falls decided to come back over here and go down, up in trip again. So she'll be very interesting if she turns up on this side of the water.
I've just checked out the quote with Bet365 for the St. Ledger for Shaminda, and that's 20-1. So when you get that in line, we'll see what Gregory does this week. So that's everything from the weekend tidied up, unless either of you have seen anything else other than at Newbury and any of the aforementioned, Ken?
There was a horse that caught my eye last week Monday on the all-weather at Kempton called Validate, trained by Sir Mark Prescott. He was back from 17-2 down to 2-1. I mean, he looked fit for Sir Mark Prescott 2-year-old, and he was typical green to start with. Was trying to learn his job as the race developed.
And Sam, you want to go back to the Curragh, and apologies, I didn't sort of get your feelings about Vespertilio.
Yeah, I was just really taken with it. I think it sets up a fascinating sort of rematch with Ilang Ilang. I just love the way that she travelled through the race and quickened. You don't see that very often in 2-year-olds, that they're so professional through a race. They swing off a relatively strong gallop and then put good distance between herself and 1 or 2 decent horses in behind her. I was really taken with that. She looks as though she's really stepped forward. for outing this year. I think William McCreary's got a really nice horse there, and I think she'll give Ilang Ilang a good race in the Moyglare. It looks like being a fascinating duel, that.
Before we get into our weekend preview, just to let you know that our sponsor Bet365 have an ITV Racing price promise. They will not be beaten on price on any horse for all UK and Irish races shown live on ITV Racing. Full T's and C's can be found on the website. So we're heading now into 4 days of fantastic action. Next week sees the start of the Ebor Festival from York, and one of the marquee races is the Jubbmont International. We have 4 runners for you in the Jubbmont International, obviously headed up by Paddington. The prices are Paddington with Bet365 is 1-2. Then we have Mustadaf is 5-2, 14-1 Nashwa, and the Foxes at 16-1. So 4 runners. Maybe if you rewind the clock back to 2009, a certain Sea the Stars ran with against 3 rivals. This one race is, you could say, kind of reminiscent of See the Stars, because Paddington comes into the race bidding to add to his haul of Group 1s, and he has been phenomenal. But Sam, it's an intriguing 3 rivals he faces at York over the 10 furlongs.
It is. It's such a shame. I think a week or 2 ago, this promised to be the race of the season. And I'm not saying it won't be, but, we're missing Desert Crown, obviously, through injury, any number of other quality mile and a quarter horses that could have perhaps turned up here. And we're left with 4. And you've got to say that the York executive have not been really backed up by, the runners on day 1 of the meeting, really. We've got 6 in the Acom, 5 in the Voltager and 4 in this, which is very disappointing, really, for such a flagship meeting. But anyway, let's deal with what we've got. We've got 4 quality animals. We've got Paddington looking for a 7th win of the season. It's been quite a remarkable season, been dominant in the last 4 Group 1s that he's contested. Comes here looking for the 5-timer at the top level. 1.6 million in prize money this year. And he's only been beaten once in his career, and that was on his debut at Ascot when he was very green and backwards. So he's just been a remarkable racehorse, utterly dominant, as I say, dynamic, versatile, with a terrific constitution. Obviously, as Aidan would say, a great mind, and he just takes everything that's thrown at him. It doesn't matter what ground he runs on, it doesn't matter over what trip he tackles and what opposition turn up, he sort of dispatches them all. So he's a very, very worthy favourite. He's very versatile tactics wise as well. Ryan could jump out and make it if he wants to, which is probably the way that the race might go, given the other 3 are probably hold up horses that like to play their hand quite late. So it's an intriguing race, but it's very difficult to oppose Paddington. If I was going to have a bet, I think I would probably look to back the Foxes without Paddington in the without markets that Bet365 offer. He's 16-1 outside of 4. Obviously, he won the Dante. That race hasn't worked out too badly. Went for the Belmont Derby, ran really well there. I think a mile and a quarter on decent ground or fast ground on the Naysmar suits him ideally. I just think he's had this race as his target for some time. I know, probably, John Gosden would say that with Mostadaf as well. But when you go back and look at that Prince of Wales's stakes, the form has just fallen apart a little bit subsequently. Those in behind have been beaten at very thin odds, the likes of Adayar and My Prospero, etc. So I'm just not sure about that race. I wasn't sure about it at the time. And, even though the speed figure suggested it was a fairly genuine renewal of the race, just the form didn't look right. There was too many horses there that underachieved. So I'll take a chance and try and take Mostadaf on. Nashwa obviously turns out quickly after her performance at Goodwood, where she was a bit unlucky. But I'll take a chance with the Foxes. At least he's proven at York, mile and a quarter on decent ground with a relatively strong gallop should suit him ideally. And hopefully Oisin Murphy will perhaps ride him a little bit further forward than he did in the Belmont Derby, where he jumped slowly, and that probably compromised his chance a little bit.
Yeah, the Foxes winning the Dante, the last horse to win the Dante and come on to win the International was, of all horses, Roaring Lion, which was ridden by Asheen. Aidan O'Brien has won this international on 6 occasions. He's hoping to be in 7th heaven for more than one reason. Paddington's 7th victory and winning this 7 times. Of course, Paddington has won the Irish 2000 Guineas. He won the Eclipse. He's won the Sussex Stakes. He has been a sensation. Is he about to add the international to the haul, Ken?
I think so. Looking at the opposition now, I mean, he's got a very good chance. I mean, what I like about Paddington is that when he races, he doesn't take anything out of himself. He comes back to after winning his races. He's hardly blowing. He's hardly sweating. He just stands there like he's just gone for a stroll in the park. I mean, as Sam said, he's got all the ingredients. He can make the running. He can sit off the pace. I think he'll have to make his own running on Wednesday. And he's probably the best 3-year-old colt in at York. He's only won 4 races from 48 runners in the last 5 years at York. So he's not got a great record here, but I think Paddington's going to be very hard to beat. I'm not a fan of Mostadaf. Like Sam, I had serious reservations about that entire form of the Princess of Wales. Horses like Luxembourg, Adayeb, and My Prospera and Baybridge, they just didn't turn up for one reason or another. So slight doubt about that. I think the Foxes is the only really one I think can hopefully give him a race, because he's still a lightly race 3-year-old. He should have scope to improvement. I can see him. I can't have Nashua. I thought she looked terrible at Newmarket, even though she didn't get the best of rides, but she just didn't look great beforehand. So, sorry, at Goodwood, she didn't look best beforehand. She was sweating, didn't look her normal self. So, yeah, it's Paddington to lose, really.
Yeah, I mean, Mostadaf won the Prince of Wales. The last time that double was done was Duke of Marmalade in 2008. So for whatever reason, the amount of actual runners that come onto the international, or the fact that the kind of the makeup of the race doesn't suit when you're moving from that race to Ascot to York. But I think all of us are in agreement. None of us are concerned if Paddington has to make his own running. None of us are concerned about his opposition. He's just come now. He's got to the stage where he's earned quite rapidly this awe, isn't he? He's just. We look forward to seeing Paddington, and we're waiting for who he's going to take on next. There's no worry, is there? And 1 to 2 odds on 1 to 2 on going into this with Bet365 in a way could be looking value.
I bet the Ballydor think tank couldn't believe they'd ever be in this position where they've, at the start of the season when he was winning a Curragh handicap, a few months later he's 1 to 2 to win a Juddmonte. I mean, it's beyond their wildest dreams. And he's been a big fillip for the flat season in a lot of respects, and also for Ballydor this summer.
Well, before we get to the international on on Wednesday, I'm still in the days when it used to be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Sorry, everyone. Before we get to the international, we're going to the Voltigeur, the Great Voltigeur. This is a race that has produced 14 St Leger winners, the latest one being Logician. But let's put that aside, because this is a good race in its own right. There are 5 declared for the Great Voltigeur, and the head is Gregory. John Gosden has won this contest on 5 occasions. Aidan's won it on 3. His last win came with Idaho in 2016. And also the face-up is Artistic Star for Rafe Beckett, Canberra Legend for James Ferguson, and Charlie Appleby as Castleway. Aidan's got Continuous. Ken, Gregory, we talked a lot about arrest, and you were mentioning perhaps Gregory's the one that we look for.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, very much an improving 3-year-old. He's very lightly raced. His family is stacked with stamina. The way he won the Queen's Vase at Ascot, I was taken by it because it's only his 3rd start. And if you look at the Goodwood run, he still looked very green when he won at Goodwood. I think he's a horse that we haven't seen the best of yet. I mean, all together, well, coming back and trip won't be a problem. Yeah, I think he's a very decent horse in the making. I mean, he'll get it all together sooner or later. I liked him. Castleway, I wasn't too sure about the horse. I mean, he was lucky to win the Bahrain Trophy at Newmarket when Ryan dropped his London. So yeah, I would have my doubts. Of the opposition, I think the interesting horse could be Canberra Legend. I thought when I saw him last time, I thought he looked like he'd finally come to himself. He's a big strapping type from the James Ferguson yard, and I like the way he performed last time. I know you'll have to forgive him for his Dante performance when he didn't turn up at York, but I just think he's a different horse this time now. Looking at him, he looks more mature and looks like a horse that could have something more to offer. So he could be the main danger to Gregory.
The Great Multitude of Betting with Bet365, there are evens Gregory, 5-2 continuous, 130 the Bahrain Trophy winner Castleway, Artistic Star at 16-1, and Canberra Legend 25-1. Favourite at the top of the market, Gregory at evens, Sam.
Yeah, he is. There's one or two mixed messages coming out of that Queen's Vase form. Obviously, Chess Piece has run well subsequently, won at Hamilton and finished second at Goodwood. Sumo Sam came out of that race as well. And St George, the runner-up, was a credible third behind Castleway in the Bahrain Trophy. But even money is a little bit tight for me. I know he's a sexy horse. The Goodwood listed run doesn't look that clever in retrospect either. So everything has a price, and my inclination is to perhaps try and find a bit of value against him. I think Continuous is probably going the right way. At least he's got some York form. Thought he looked for all the world like he wants a 1.5 miles, 1.6 miles when he ran in the Dante. He wasn't very quick that day, and the Foxes outspeeded him. He was then sent to the French Derby, which was probably a step too far for him at that stage of his career. And I thought he ran well in the King Edward at Ascot behind King of Steel. That was much more like it. I think this track and this trip will suit him a lot better. Long sweeping bends, big straight or long straight, and 12 furlongs. That might play to his strengths a little bit more. I take on board Ken's point that this isn't always Aidan O'Brien's greatest track statistics wise, but he would be my starting point. And like Ken, I thought Canberra Legend, if you can just forgive him that run in the Dante where he was pretty abysmal that day at a relatively short price. I think his two subsequent efforts have been really solid runs. He was going on at the line at Goodwood last time, and the time before I thought he ran really well in quite a competitive Hampton Court Stakes behind Vampiro. Just hadn't got the pace to go with him, but stuck to his task well. I think he'd probably outrun his odds. I don't think he deserves to be a 25-1 chance.
Yeah, and James won it last year with Deauville Legend. Let's come back to Ken again. Now we're going on to the Yorkshire Oaks. This is a race that Aidan has won on 6 occasions. He's likely to be running the wonderful Save the Last Dance, who was second at Epsom, and then went on to the second at Epsom, I should say, to Soul Sister, then went on to the Curragh for the Irish Oaks and defeated Blue Stocking. Blue Stocking is likely to reoppose in rivalry. We'll also potentially have Free Wind, who comes through a different route and we'll have Alpherson, the Nassau Stakes winner at the moment. Save the Last Dance is 9-4, Blue Stocking 7-2, Free Wind at 4-6, Alpherson 10 bar. Will this be a 7th Yorkshire Oaks for Aidan, Ken?
No. Sure
about that, Ken?
I've been all over Blue Stocking all year. She's been my horse to follow, and I honestly I was in pain when she got beaten last time at the Curragh. I think she's a very good filly. I think the ground, if it's going to be in her favour, and I think she can turn the tables around. I mean, even today, I still can't believe how Ryan got Save the Last Dance up to win at the Curragh last time. I mean, yeah, she's a good filly. I can't deny that, but I think she's very much ground dependent. I think if the ground is softer, then I think I'm in trouble. But if the ground stays, hopefully, as it is at the moment, I think Blue Stocking will turn the tables. I mean, we know the team of Rafe Beckett's are in great form at the moment. Horses are going well. So I'm hoping Blue Stocking can win. Free Wind, ground was too soft for her, they say, when she ran at Goodwood. But, I mean, the conditions were horrendous that day. I mean, everything looked like drowned. Everything looked terrible. So I can forgive her that. But she has to give a weight to 2 improving horses. I'm not sure about Alpherson. I mean, Sam can tell you that race was just literally a sprint from 3 furlongs, and she was in the right position with Jim Crowley to pounce on Ryan Moore on above the curve. So I think she's got a lot to do. But no, it's all in on Blue Stocking.
Yeah, I thought like you, Kev, that was a sprint. But not only did I think the Nassau was a sprint, it was more of a case, how do we get Blue Rose CNB? And then at the end of it, let's see who is the winner in the last furlong. And that's how it unravelled. Also, we heard Sam that Ken doesn't think it needs the ground save the last dance. It needs a bit of rain. I don't think the Weather Watch suggests the rain might come on Friday, which won't help save the last dance. How do you see this contest? You've got Free Wind coming into the race. It's coming through like a different route, as I said, has taken on the boys Free Wind, and you've got Al Hassan, which you Ken suggests that you knew this was like a sprint in the Nassau.
Yeah, Ken certainly won't be doing a rain dance for Save the Last Dance, that's for sure. I'm singing for the same hymn sheet, really. I like Blue Stocking. I think this track will suit her, hopefully. Although you can never be sure with York until they've done it. But I just think a flatter, more orthodox track, perhaps, other than the Curragh, on good ground as well, will play to her strengths a little bit more than Save the Last Dance, who's obviously, a 1.5 mile grinder, 1.6 horse in time, perhaps, a horse that wants plenty of cut in the ground to make it a real stamina test. This could be a bit more of a speed test on Thursday afternoon, and that should play to Blue Stocking's favour, I would think. I think there's two that are a little bit overpriced as well. I'll probably play around these two rather than take a price at take a stab at the shorter prices. I think Ross Carberry went very well through that Curragh race. I like Paddy Toomey as a trainer. I think he's excellent. Just got worn down by Emily Dickinson, but got to the front looking a comfortable winner, and just the 1.6 on soft ground just found her out a little bit. I think this test will be much more up her street. And the other one I quite like was Novakai, who's got a bit of experience around York, really improved for the stretching out to the 1.5 miles at Newmarket and listed company, won very well. I think this is an ideal test for her as well. She's a big price. I think they're 10s and 16s as we speak. And I think that's fair. I'm not sure that there's going to be tons of runners in this. They're both jocked up as well, so that's a positive for me. And 10s and 16s, I'll take a chance each way with them. But if you wanted my view at the head of the market, then it would be Blue Stocking.
I think Poptronic is big as well at 16 if Carlbert decides that should head to York. I just want to give the case for Free Wind, taking a different route. She won the Park Hill, so potentially it wasn't seen that she would be running back over 1.5 miles. She obviously Lancashire Oaks from Sela Rosa, Middleton Stakes, so she can shout out there. She then went to the Hardwick and took on Pile Driver. Fair play there, and then we'll ignore last time out because I don't think anyone could see what was going on at Goodwood on that day. So on the Saturday, it was poor visibility, it was heavy ground, and although for a long way she was second to Sumo Sun, I think after a while we all lost vision of everything. I hope she's none the worse for that. So I'm Free Wind and Poptronic. Let's though go to the Lowther Stakes, and I think I'll come to Ken for this. This looks at a great race. We've had Carlbert win this race twice. We've got 3 of the last 10 favourites in the Lowther. William Haggis has won the race twice, and Relief Rally, the Super Sprint, the Weatherby Super Sprint winner comes here, was second in the Queen Mary, and I thought was perhaps, like in hindsight, when you peel it back, was perhaps we ignored that second because of the speed they went, and then we realised just how much pace that Relief Rally has, Ken, after the Weatherby Super Sprint. It was just a real powerful performance. It's like a Mia Harris acceleration, wasn't it?
Yes, I mean, she's very unlucky not to come here unbeaten because Royal Ascot, everything just went wrong for her. She got upset in the paddock, she was sweating, she was keen to post, she was a real pain to load. I think she missed the break, and then all of a sudden she appeared there running on and just got done. She was very unlucky that day. She went to the Super Sprint and she was a lot calmer. She's went down to post nice and collectively. She's loaded brilliantly, and then we show what she can do. She conserved all her energy and showed a real good turn of foot to to seal the race. She's a very good filly as she stands, but you won't like her because when you look at her, she's very small. There's nothing of her. So you can see why William Haggis is thinking of going to here and then on to the Abbey, because he can't see her being a 3-year-old. She's just a ready-made 2-year-old, but a good one. I think she's got a very good chance of winning this race. I mean, Cherry Blossom looked very good, beating a good field at the Curragh. After making her debut previously, she took a massive step forward and won by 5 lengths. Nothing out of that race has come out to advertise the form just yet, so we don't know how good she is, but visually she was impressive. And Beautiful Diamond, who was sent off favourite for the Queen Mary that day, she made a real impressive performance at Nottingham and just made a fluff their lines at Ascot, because in truth most of Carl Burke's juveniles just didn't turn up that week, so I can forgive her as well. So she could be a danger to the favourite, but I just think Relief Rally is a now 2-year-old, and that's why I think she could probably win the Lav on Friday.
Yeah, Relief Rally won, I thought, the Super Sprint, not because she had a good draw, not because she had a weight advantage. It's just because she was a good filly, a good winner. Relief Rally 7-4, Cherry Blossom, who beat Chandigarh 9-4, Flora Bermuda at 4-1. And then we look down, Beautiful Diamond 12. Sam, any value to be had, or you like us all? You're in the Relief Rally camp.
The price is the only thing that's sort of putting me off a little bit, to be honest, at 7-4. She was entitled to go and win the Super Sprint as she did. She was obviously a bit unfortunate, as Ken said, not to have won a Queen Mary as well, big field Queen Mary. I think there was another filly that was a little bit unfortunate in that race as well, and that was Flora Bermuda. She was drawn on the wrong side. She was 20-1. She showed that running was creditable at Goodwood next time out. Okay, it was only a conditions race, but I was really taken with her. She clocked a really good speed figure, and the Balding team all quickly nominated the Lowther as a potential runs next for her. Obviously, the draw is going to be interesting. We're not privy to that, as we're not privy to throughout the week. So there's always a little bit of a proviso there. But I think if Cherry Blossom doesn't turn up, who I was sort of blown away with. I know Steve Mellish and myself were really impressed with her when she won a maiden at the Curragh a couple of weeks ago. Who you couldn't fail to be. 5 lengths back to the second, another 5 lengths back to the third. There were astonishing distances in a 6 furlong maiden at the Curragh. I think if she doesn't run and they save her for home targets, I think Flora Bermuda will be, a very worthy sort of second favourite behind Relief Rally, and I'd probably just side with her to cause a little mini upset and spoil the favourites party.
Let's move on to Friday. It's Nunthorpe Stakes, the Group 1, and Highfield Princess coming here to try and win it for a second year running. Batash did it in 2019-20, Mecca's Angel 2015-2016, and Highfield Princess has 13 wins from 35 starts. She's won 3 Group 1s, and last time out she was excellent at Goodwood. But this time we have her old foe Bradsell, who beat her in the King's Stand, and we have a statement in that Big Eves has been supplemented. Andre Azzini will be aboard, and lo and behold, who rode Big Eves in the Molecombe but none other than Jason Hart, who will be aboard Highfield Princess. Coming to you, Sam, what a great renewal we have. We've got the old friends in there as well, Cardem and Twilight Calls. It's a good old race in Nunthorpe.
Yeah, it is. I'm not sure it's quite up there with 1 or 2 recent renewals, but then you always look back in the past and with, rose-tinted spectacles, don't you? Especially when you get to my age. And I think, Highfield Princess, if ever you wanted to back something at around 11-8, 6-4, she's the type of filly that you're happy to do it with, because you're going to get a running out of her, aren't you? You're going to get a performance out of her, especially on sort of her home turf. And a race course where she's already proved that she's, very, very effective. It was a high quality performance, albeit in a Group 2 last time at Goodwood. The way she travelled through the race, the way she put it to bed, she had a little wander around in the last furlong as well, and never looked like she was ever going to be beaten all the way through that race. She must have, been a dream if you were a favourite backer and you were on her at a very thin price, because you never had a moment's palpitation. So I think she's very much the one to beat. Obviously, again, we're not privy to the draw. We're not privy to where the pace across the track is. There are 1 or 2 horses that are declared at the 5-day stage that are very, very quick, you know, the likes of Living the Dream, etc. But she's very versatile. She can sit on the pace. She can make it herself. And I just think she's going to have too much class for these. I really admire Bradsell and the way they've campaigned Bradsell this year. Done really well to get him back on track. He looked as though he was going nowhere at one point, and then, you know, to drop him back to 5 at Ascot. He's been off since. I think that's probably a smart move. I did wonder whether, you know, just watching how he checked out over 6 furlongs a couple of times, whether there was like a little issue there, that once he got into the red zone, you know, that sort of manifested itself. But he obviously won pretty tidily at Ascot, beating Highfield Princess, albeit interfering and intimidating her a touch. But I think Highfield Princess can gain some revenge back on her favourite turf.
It'd be remiss of me if I didn't mention regional, but the highest level regional has taken on, is listed so far. Also, I ought to mention Dramatised, who was second in a Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, won a Temple, and then after the run in the King's Stand, the jockey reported it was seeking a much better, much faster surface. Well, hopefully the rain won't arrive and we'll get that. Ken? Lots of imponderables into the mix. Highfield Princess, we know, has already won this race. Can she do it again?
She's got a good chance. I mean, as Sam has said, she's got York form, which always counts for a lot. I mean, she ran 2 good races at Royal Ascot, went to Goodwood, and it was a Group 1 3 against Group 2 or 3 opposition. She travelled well, she looked the part, and she had the race signed and delivered after they crossed the line. So, yeah, she goes there on top form. The yard had a great week overall, John Quinn, at Goodwood, so there's no way on that score. Bradsell, he surprised me because I wasn't sure if he actually trained on, but the way he won at Royal Ascot just signed that he's still quicker horse now than he was last year. So the 5 furlongs at York, I think, will suit him. Flat 5, he can go a pace, but I'm going to swerve the front 2, and I'm going to take a chance with Twilight Call. I thought he was very unlucky behind Bradsell when he ran at Ascot. Things just didn't go his way, didn't get the breaks. And he just finished off full of running behind him. I think gets a pace over 5. Henry Candy's won the race before. I thought Each Way was the way I was looking at this race, and I'd go Twilight Call.
Oh, I'm with you, Ken. I was on Each Way at Ascot when Ryan was aboard. I wonder whether Henry will give Ryan another chance. Come on. So. Yeah, I hope so. He rode a brilliant race. He just didn't get the breaks. Now we're going from sprinting to much, much further. And Quickthorn saying, right, well, I've come and beat you at your place. You come and beat me at mine. And it was probably one of the canniest rides by Tom Marquand at Goodwood, while the majority were focusing on, quite rightly, why not focus on the Gold Cup winner, Courage Monomede, who'd won over the 2.5 miles. Quickthorn, or maybe Huey Morrison and Tom Marquand, were thinking, we'll kick at the top of the bend and see if they can come and catch us. And it seemed as though they kicked as soon as the stalls opened, and no one could catch Quickthorn. He's 5-2 to win the Lonsdale. Coltrane 11-4, Courage Monomede 7-2, Giavoletto is 13-2. Now, there's much saying that they won't let Quickthorn do that trick again, Ken. But now you're going back to Quickthorn and his own territory as such.
Yeah, well, he's done it at York. He did it at York before when he went off in front and everyone thought, oh, he's gone too quick. And before they realised they couldn't reel him back in. They'll be a lot wiser this time after what happened at Goodwood, because I must admit, you watched the Goodwood race and you thought halfway, they're going to have a job to get him back. And he just kept rolling and they never got to him. I mean, you look at the opposition. I mean, Coltrane, whoever rides him, which will be Oisin Murphy, he will definitely want to be sitting on Tom's tail to make sure he doesn't get a clear lead on him. Courage Monomede, I didn't think look as well as he did at Goodwood compared to Ascot.
Oh, right.
I just think the Ascot race may just have taken the edge off him that day. So with a little bit of a break, he might come back to his Gold Cup performance. So I can probably see him running well. If I'm being honest, I haven't got a strong opinion in the race. I mean, I think it's going to be tactically a real decent race. But if I had to select one, I'd probably just give Cornwall me. Sorry, I'll probably give Quickthorn another chance to show his dominance, but I won't be that confident.
Sam, this is going to be interesting what Tom does this time, because that's what the whole conversation will be around. How is Tom going to ride Quickthorn this time? Because everyone's going to be ready for that. I'm going to kick on away from the field. What's he going to do this time? And who do you like in this Lonsdale Cup?
Well, he'll certainly have a plan. That's one thing you'll know with Tom Marquand and Hughie Morrison. They'll have a plan. Whether he can repeat the same level of performance 3.5 weeks on, that would be more my question mark, especially with Quickthorn, who's never been a candidate for the most consistent racehorse in training. I know he's won his last 2 and he beat Israel, don't forget, up at York 2 starts ago. That form doesn't look too shabby either. So the master of hindsight would have thought he was a good price at Goodwood, and so it proved as he went off. I'm going to take a little chance with Elderoff. Look, he's not I wouldn't say he's my favourite racehorse in training, but I think he's been a little unfortunate this year in some respects. He didn't fire in the Gold Cup, which I think, there was 1 or 2 horses that perhaps didn't give their running that day, but he ran really well in the Yorkshire Cup here early on in the season behind Giavoletto, who I think's got a big chance as well on Friday. I thought he ran really well at Goodwood last time. I just don't think the ground really helped him much. He was out of his ground, and he was only beaten 6 lengths by Quickthorn. I think he's sort of 8-1 with Bet365, and that appeals to me more. Where I can't see at the top of the market where I'm going to get any value really. Quickthorn's accordingly priced 5-2, Coltrane's 11-4. Thought he was a bit unlucky at Goodwood because he was the one that led the peloton that day. And I think in a more orthodoxly run race, I think he would have come out a little bit better. Courage Mon Ami, I don't know what to make of his performance last time. Whether Ken says whether he has just dipped a little bit, he could easily bounce back, but he's trying York for the first time. So Elderoff, the north of Watford system, I call it, he's run 4 times, I think, away from sort of, the southern-based tracks. He's run at Nottingham, he's won at Newcastle, he's won at Doncaster, obviously in the Ledger, and he finished 2nd here, only beaten a fraction by Giavoletto. So clearly likes the air away from the south. He's a northern boy, and I'm going to go with him at 8-1 each way.
Yeah, there you go. There is the quandary, everyone. What do you think is going to happen? I think I'll stick with Quickthorn and have a wry smile as they're leaving the paddock. It's just, it sets it up beautifully, because good race. On Saturday, though, we'll all be watching. It's the Ebor itself. Heading up the markets is Sweet William. It's got to get in. Then we've got Absurd, Live the Dream, Real Dream, Okita Sushi, Golden Rules. It is a wonderful contest, as always, the Ebor. Sam, what do you think?
Well, Ken will have seen more of the favourite than I have, certainly in the flesh. But you couldn't fail but be sort of impressed with what he's done this year. He obviously looks a quality animal. There is a little bit of a question mark whether he's going to make the field or not, and that would be enough really to sort of make me overlook him a little bit, in a preview on a Monday afternoon. Obviously he was very taking at Goodwood. He looks to have all the sort of capability and all the sort of facets you need for a race of this nature. He's quite battle hardened now. He's run well in a couple of very useful handicaps. He's trained by a top guy. He's only 4 years of age from a late maturing family, so there's plenty of ticks. Obviously Willie Mullins has got the obligatory horse in here as well, long distance handicap or stakes race in this country, and Willie's to be feared. But I'm going to take a little bit of a chance with Scampy, just because he runs York so well. I was quite taken with his Ascot performance last time. It was a really, really strong speed figure. He obviously didn't fire in the John Smith because that was over an inadequate trip for him, but it was another look at the Naesmire. And then you go back, I think he won the Jorvik handicap back at the May meeting, and that was a win and you're in. So I think this has been on his mind, Andrew Balding, for all season. So I think stepping up in trip for a horse that's got plenty of pace, I don't imagine that to be an issue for him. He settles reasonably well. Quite battle hardened. He's been in 1 or 2 deep races this year. I think he's sort of 14-16-1. I'll probably take a chance with him, with Bet365 offering 1 or 2 enhanced places as well. And
coming to you, Ken, as Sam said, you'd have seen much more of the favourite, Sweet William?
Yeah, I've seen him twice. I saw him at Newbury when he put up a really good performance, in Goodwood where he was pretty dominant that day and won quite nicely. But the worrying thing was the owner wasn't keen to go for the race. I mean, she goes, even if he got in, she wasn't a fan of the race. So I'm going to have to persuade her to run him. But if he can get in, but he's, like I said, he is a progressive type. He's got a bit of quality about him as well. I mean, I don't think we've seen the best of him. So interesting to see if he gets in. Real Dreamer Sir Michael Stout's an interesting one. He's won over a mile and 6. I think he'll get the trip. He's stepping up, very lightly raced. He's only had 3 runs this year. I think there's more to come from him. If I had to select one, I'd go for him. But it's a knee ball. There's going to be so many horses going to be have a go because it's worth so much money. It's an open race. But yeah, I'll have a little bit on Real Dream.
So that's the races that I thought we'd highlight. However, when doing all these sort of things, there might be something elsewhere that either of you might like to mention. A York Week, starting with you, Sam. Is there anything outside of those races, or are you happy with what we've gone through so far?
Well, so far I've not been through every race, but the Clipper Handicap is always a race that interests me over the mile there, and David O'Mara's got a pretty good record in it, and I think he could well have. Well, he's certainly got at this stage of entry a number of horses that competed in the race last year, including I think last year's winner, Blue for You, who
yes, nice horse.
Yeah, he blew out a bit at Goodwood behind Johan in the Goodwood Mile there on very soft ground. But I think Back to York could see him to good light. The old favourite Escobar's also in the race as well. He was second in this race last year. He hasn't been cited much of this year, but if you actually drill down into his data and have a look at his mile record round York, it's pretty good, and I think he's going to be 25-33 to 1. So I'll probably play those two each way and take a bit of a chance that it's another O'Meara run fest, so to speak, at the Knowsmire, and he goes well with those two. So Escobar and Blue for You, probably the predominant selection in the Clipper.
Yeah, I think he's won it 3 or 4 times, the like of Lord Glitters and Custom Cut and so on and so forth. And as you mentioned, Blue for You. Don't be despair with Blue for You. I think it finished behind Perotto, and we all knew what Perotto's done next after Goodwood. So you can guess I was on Blue for You in the Golden Mile. I kept an eye on that white cap, much of what you could see of the race. Ken? You've heard from Sam go in the Clipper. Where would you like to go, or have you got anything else?
Yeah, I'll go City of York. I'll go for Sacred in the City of York. William Haggis had her entered in the Hungerford. He swerved that engagement to go to York. I mean, again, how she lost at Royal Ascot, I'll never know. When Charlie Hills' horse came and done him right on the line. But he's really kept this filly fresh. Sacred. And interesting that he's kept her fresh and took for York. So yeah, Sacred, I think, in City of York, taking on another Ray Beckett horse, who's favourite, which is King Ross. Yeah. So I'll go Sacred to hopefully turn him over.
So there's your outside selections. Are you going to put up a best selection of the week at York?
Yeah. Again, I've said it before. I'm all in on Blue Stocking.
Fair enough. Excellent. And Sam?
Loves a pair of stockings, as Ken. I think probably the best value bet that I've put is Eldorado at 8 to 1. I think with Bet 365. Yeah. I think that's very fair. Shorter price, I think Highfield Princess.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for joining us this week's episode of Racing Weekly. Brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet 365. Many thanks to both Sam Turner and Ken Pitterson for joining me on the show this week. As always, if you like what you have heard or watched in this or any of our previous episodes, then please leave us a kind review on Apple Podcasts or in the comments section of YouTube. Rishi will be back in a couple of weeks to have a look at the Sprint Cup at Haydock. So for now, goodbye from us.